Everybody, it's Eric Songer here with you with my weekly podcast this summer called Second Floor Therapy. And I realize it's July 8th and I've missed a whole month of the summer so far doing these podcasts, but it's been a pretty crazy ride and at the same time a very laid back ride where I haven't been filling every moment of my day with stuff to do like I do during the school year. So one of those things that's kind of slid is this podcast. But I'm really excited to do this podcast this summer. I have several topics lined up and probably enough for 2 summers worth. Too bad we don't have 2 summers worth. And it makes me think about maybe reconfiguring how I do the podcast during the school year, because usually during the school year it's a what's happening in the CMSW band program. So we'll see how that all works. But I'm going to start this series of podcasts this summer by just letting you know what Second Floor Therapy is. About 5 years ago, I had a couple students, Tally Tripp and Gracie Grohens, and they were in my advisory. And during that period of time, advisory on every Wednesday was this really long period of time. And a lot of times we got the curriculum done that we were supposed to do, and we just had some downtime. And so a lot of times kids would chat, do some homework, and sometimes they'd come into my office where sometimes I was trying to get some stuff done. And we would just start talking. And one day, I think it was Tally, it might have been Gracie, but they were both in my office. Tally said, "This is like therapy." And then that name just stuck. And then the fact that our band room's on the second floor, somewhere down the road, it became Second Floor Therapy. And so one of my big things in philosophies as a teacher is that relationships with students and their families is number one. It's the most important thing. It's more important than the discipline that we teach. It's more important than behavior. It's the thing. It's building relationships, because out of that comes everything else. And so a lot of times students are up visiting with Ms. Idell and me and just talking about life. So, and we love that. It's great. It's great because kids need that at that age. Kids need that at every age. So anyway, I decided to start a podcast last summer called Second Floor Therapy. And last summer, I mainly focused on issues with middle school and teaching middle school, and sometimes I threw some music stuff in there too. This summer, I'm going to be a little bit more all over the map. I hope that's okay. There is going to be a lot about middle school and music education, and but there'll be some other things, and sometimes we won't hit on middle school. Sometimes we won't hit on music, but that's all right. And if you have any feedback, I'd love to hear from you. Shoot me an email at songer@songerstudio.com. I'm on Twitter at Eric Songer, and you can always message me. So I would love to hear from you. So today, the first topic is actually one of the reasons why I've been starting this podcast late, and that's because of a conference that I went to back in June called the Association of Popular Music Education National Conference, and this year it was in New York City. I've been going to this conference now for 4 years, and I've been presenting all 4 years and been able to go to some incredible locations. We've been to Boston, Denver, Nashville last year, and now this past month, New York City. And this year, I was very, very honored to get to go with one of my music colleagues, Scott Prescott, who teaches music over at Pioneer Ridge Middle School. And we do a lot of co-curricular groups together. We work on curriculum together for our middle school bands. And so we just hang a lot together. He's just one of my best friends in the world. And it was really cool to go to New York City and be part of this conference with him. And also get to see somebody else's that I know, get to see their eyes open as much as I do at this conference. And so we spent a few days in New York City. It was at New York University down in the Village. And in addition to the conference, I'll just throw some other fun things out there. We just had an absolute blast. The conference would go till about 5:30 every day. And then we get a chance just to go hang out and do stuff in the city. And, there's a couple things to do in New York City every night. But the first night we were there, we went up to Jazz at Lincoln Center and got to see the Christian McBride Big Band. And then a special treat in addition to that, they had a talking session where they talked about the Birth of the Cool album for about 2 hours. And we got to meet Lee Konitz, who is the last living member from that album. So that was super cool. And then Lee Konitz actually was at the Christian McBride concert as well. So that was really cool. The following night, We totally changed gears and went to a theater in Times Square and saw the 80s pop star Howard Jones, who's best known for his hits Things Can Only Get Better, No One Is to Blame, Life in One Day. He had a ton of top 40 hits in the 80s, and he's a big synthesizer guy. He even played on the exact same guitar that we have in our district. So that was really neat to see him on stage with that. And in addition to that, he had two opening acts. One that was this newer band, this duo, really talented, called All Hail the Silence. And then the other one was Men Without Hats. And if you're an 80s music fan, you are probably familiar with the song Safety Dance. And they had another top 40 hit called Pop Goes the World later on in the 80s. And it was so fun seeing that band on stage. I could go on and on about them, and I won't, but that was super cool. The next night, I went and saw the New York Philharmonic, again, completely changing gears, and went to see some Rachmaninoff and some Copland, so that was awesome. And then the next night, when my family had gotten in town, we went and saw the show Aladdin on Broadway. So just four totally different things, total New York City, like seeing different genres, different venues, different eras of music, styles of music. So very, very cool time in New York City. But I wanted to talk about the conference a little bit and how it kind of relates to my philosophy and some of the things that we're doing in our district and some of the things I'd like to see maybe happen. And again, I'd love to get your feedback about this, but I just have a list of things here. And so if I keep looking this way, I'm just kind of looking at my notes here about some of the sessions I went to, and I'm not going to mention a lot of names of people, mainly because I'll probably screw up their names. Sometimes I didn't write them down, but I'm just going to give a couple tidbits of things that were really, really moving to me. The conference started out the first day with a session on beatboxing, and there were some world-renowned beatboxers that came and performed for us, ranging from age 12 up to my age, and I was absolutely blown away at the skills and the musicality and how this is an art form. And I've always thought of beatboxing as an art form. I've always admired it. I've always thought you can be very musical with it. I just never really took it to the next level where these people are taking it. And to even think about, one of the things that really stuck with me is that when we talk about kids who have language barriers or they have speech deficiencies, maybe even moderate to severe speech issues, beatboxing can be an incredible way to find confidence and find success in using your voice and to do it in a way that other people can't. And things like that are things that I would like to implement this next year, and just have kids do it. It's such a fun thing. When I've done it before with students, they love it. They just love doing it. Sometimes they're hesitant, of course, because they're middle school kids and they think they're going to sound stupid and look stupid. But I think down deep, almost every kid I've ever met is like, yeah, this is kind of fun to do, and it's cool. So that was a great way to start the conference, and it was just a sign of things to come. The next session I went to was really cool. I've been trying to get the modern band concept at our high school. We do so many things at the middle school, and then when they get to the high school, there's just no outlet for in school, like during the school day, doing pop music, doing production, technology, songwriting. There's just not an outlet for that. It's not built into the curriculum, or I should say, into the schedule as far as elective courses. And one of the roadblocks of that, of course, is money. And one of the sessions I went to talked about grants and how there is money out there to get startup costs, to get things rolling, and to help you get supplies even as you're going on and you need to replace a computer or some kind of technology or hardware or something like that. And that was so cool to hear, and that there's a lot of people who are willing to help with that. There's specific grants. So as I move forward, and I'm not going to be shy about it, I want this to be something that we have at our high school. I think it'd be really great to get more kids involved in music, and kids who are already in music involved in more kind of music if it's a real passion for them. So that was cool to hear that there's those kind of outlets. Went to a great session on hip hop and how you can implement hip hop into your traditional classroom, or an elective general music class, or even an after school class like we offer. And doing things like just wrapping a book, for example. Let's take a book like even like a Dr. Seuss book, and let's wrap it. um, Making a place for kids to create in your room. Just letting kids mess around and come up with creative ideas. Have time for that built into your day at some point. When you're doing, like we do, a Composer of the Month program, maybe have students come up with a rap about a composer that's not from our era, a la Hamilton. So maybe we're learning about Beethoven and we have the kids do a rap about Beethoven. So things like that would be super cool. Went to a great session on why pop music. Why do we teach pop music in the schools? And there's so many reasons. And I'll do another podcast on this again later. But just some that pop into mind again is getting kids involved in music that aren't interested in the current offerings in the music field at our schools. Another reason is that we give kids who are in music another opportunity to do something other than sing in the choir, play in the orchestra, play in the band. Maybe they want to get into writing music, composing. They want to get into music production and sound engineering. Maybe they want to play country music, or they want to get into hip hop, that kind of stuff. So just getting those kids another opportunity. Another thing is just the team building and the getting kids together, and again, kind of focusing more on those kids who aren't in music already, introducing them to other people who have the same passion they do, and in some cases maybe even saving some kids from themselves who are really struggling finding that niche in life, and this is their niche, and so we're giving that to them. So, and there's more reasons too, but I just love that. Went to a cool theory session that talked about kind of like how I teach our piano bonus lessons, where I don't get into a lot of theory because I have a lot of students taking piano that have no piano experience, very limited music theory experience, but I want to get them playing as soon as I can. So you almost use patterns and teach them, I usually teach them the note names, but I'm not getting into like, okay, I'll say play a C, and then play an E and a G, and notice you're doing every other key, and that makes a major chord. And we'll just talk about all the chords within the key of C, major and minor. Well, then we'll talk about how many half steps, and we don't even use the term half step, we'll just how many notes are between each note in those chords, and then we can apply that to learning a D major chord, and oh, look at that, there's a black key in the middle, and so things like that. And it kind of made me feel like, oh, there's other people who do this too, so I'm not completely off my rockers. That's pretty cool. Went to a great session on basically how there's 10 rock pop rhythms ever, and like you can just base it down to the rhythm from Bo Diddley. There's the Chuck Berry rhythm, there's the standard 12/8 rhythm, there's the Stevie Wonder Isn't She Lovely feel, and he listed off all these different kinds of rhythms and how you can just kind of pare it down and just say, teach kids these rhythms. And then I kind of went off from that and said, well, you could teach kids these rhythms, and if you wanted to, you could show them the notation for that. Because a lot of times kids have a hard time reading hard rhythmic notation, but sometimes if they hear it in their head first, then see it, then they can kind of be like, oh, now I can put it together a little bit better. So I will mention one name. There's a guy, Steve Holly. There's so many great people at this conference, but Steve just wrote a book called Coaching a Popular Music Ensemble, which I still have it sitting on my desk at school that I need to read, but I've skimmed through it a little bit. It's awesome, and it's a lot like what we do, but it's trying to I think one of Steve's ideas is that we have teachers who would like to do this, but they have no idea what to do. They didn't get it in their undergrad. They never played in a rock group or a pop group. They don't know where to start, and so a book like that is helpful. So if somebody is wanting to do this, but they don't have the expertise, or maybe they even do have some of the expertise, but they just want to polish it and make sure that they know what they're doing with this. This is a great book. So. Some other things, just a quote I love is, I don't have it word for word, but loving kids for wanting to be in music, regardless of their knowledge and skill, and even their work ethic I would throw in there. Just love kids for being there. We talked about, there's a class that had a lot to do with teaching music and video production, which is a lot like our music in the image class. And once again, it was almost like verifying like what I'm doing in that class is something that's very beneficial. In fact, some of the projects that they do, like making a movie soundtrack, making a pop song, making music videos, is a lot like what we do in our class in Music in the Image. They even take it a step further and do some coding. So that's really cool too. But it made me kind of rethink what we're doing in Music in the Image, and then kind of what we can implement into our band program too. Like this past year, we had our 8th graders do a songwriting project on GarageBand, which was super cool. We talked about what else? What else? Oh, I love this quote too. Everything we ever really want is on the other side of fear. Isn't that really true? Where we're just scared to do something because we're scared of failure, we're scared that it's not going to work, we're scared of wasting time, we're scared of not having the time or the money or interacting with other people or whatever. We're just weird. But I love that. Everything we ever really want is on the other side of fear. Went to another session by Steve Holly where he talked about the big ideas of teaching pop music. It was actually a kind of an open forum session, and talked about, does it need to be standardized like our regular music? What are the main things we're trying to teach through modern band? Pop music teaches diversity. That was a big theme through the whole thing that really hit me, and I've always known that. But another reason I would love to have these classes at the high school and continue what we're doing at the middle school is because music teaches inclusion, and the more we get into hip hop and music of first people in our country, Indian music, Chinese music, world drumming, African music, whatever. You are teaching inclusion. We have a mariachi band. It's so important for kids to see the music of their culture and see the music that their grandparents grew up with, and that we are accepting of that. And it's so important for kids to see music of all different cultures, regardless of what our background is. We need to know what else is out there, not just know that it's out there, but we should learn something about it, learn how it's performed, learn what instruments are used, what the notation is, if any, how it relates to their culture, the importance of music in their culture, the dance that goes with it, the fashion that goes with it, the food and the ceremonies and whatever else goes with it. That should be something that we're doing. And the more we do of that, we're not just teaching music, we're talking about inclusion, we're talking about acceptance of others, we're talking about empathy, we're expanding our minds towards what other people in this world do. Another one of my podcasts coming up later is going to be dealing with getting kids outside of the school, and how sometimes middle school kids, and you might remember from your middle school days, maybe you're a middle schooler listening to this, you are so caught up in your circle, whatever that is, your circle of friends, your circle of teachers, your parents, your neighbors, and you know that there's more to the world than what's in your little 10-mile radius of your community and the four walls of your school and your home, but you don't really realize that that can really have an impact on your life, and that you aren't trapped in the four walls of the school or your home or your community. Because sometimes I think kids feel trapped and they feel like, I have to do this or I will be shunned. I have to do this or no one will like me. I have to do this to keep these same friends. And I think if we can get people out of the school more, out of the community more, and see that there is more to life than just this, and not just, whatever, a 1-week camp is great, a trip to Chicago like we did with our garage band is great, but bringing that into the school too, like bringing in people, bringing in professionals, showing them that the world comes to you and this is going on outside of the four walls here. I think that's really important, and teaching different styles of music and world music and other cultures is so important. The hip hop sessions I went to were so great, and I could talk on and on about that. Things about like, we should diversify our ensembles, like our traditional ensembles, by playing popular music. That's great, but we should also have popular music ensembles and classes that teach all this stuff. Rap has pitch. It's not just this monotone. Rappers go, when you rap, you go up into high ranges and low ranges. It's not just, a monotone thing. The fact that rappers don't do covers, and we got into a discussion of when we teach rap music, should we have our kids do covers? And there's a couple school of thoughts. One school of thought is, well, since rappers don't do covers, no, we should have kids write their own raps and then rap them. And because that's what we all do when you're in that world. But the other school of thought is that, well, in order to learn how to write a good rap and how to rap, you have to listen, you have to imitate, you have to find the people you like and the concepts you like and the rhyming structures and the song structures that you like. And in order to do that, you need to practice rapping what already exists. And so, yes, you should be covering other songs. But then the people on the other side once again say, well, yeah, of course, but you don't do that on stage and live in performance. And then going back over here, like, well, yeah, you should, because it builds your confidence. You're not having to write out. So it was a back and forth conversation, which I found very interesting. We got into mumble rappers and the difference between that and the more old school rap. And if you don't know what mumble rap is, I did a little research myself on it. It's interesting how many rappers now fit under that category. And then the connection with rapping, freestyling, and how that is very similar to improvising in a jazz group, how that's or similar to stand-up comedy. So really cool things. Okay, I'm going on pretty long, and I'm almost to the end of my list. We talked about there was a session on songwriting and using GarageBand or Logic or some of the other programs, and just some of the ways that you can teach that stuff. And that's always stuff I'd like to do more of. I think kids get a lot out of that. There was a cool session on just all the components of teaching music, modern band, doing it at the college level, and then putting that into the secondary and elementary levels that we're teaching at, and just everything that goes along with teaching popular music. Bridges gaps, participates in various ways. There's peer teaching. There's new media literacies we're teaching. You're teaching collective intelligence, multitasking, performing, of course, different kinds of media. There's just so many things going on when you're teaching modern band, just like anything else. But it's more than just saying, hey, let's learn a Bon Jovi song or let's learn a Drake song and perform it. It goes well beyond that. Just like learning a song by Beethoven or Holst or Brian Balmage's, there's more to it than just learning the song. So anyway, and there were other performances too. I didn't even get into that, and just the networking with other people and seeing what other people are doing and going through some of the same struggles that I am, and at the same time also finding just some incredible gloriousness in the kids that we're positively affecting, and knowing that what we're doing is good. It is good, and we got to do it right, and we got to figure out what right is, but it's good. So, and again, it was great to go with Scott Prescott. Scott is now taking DJ lessons and Ableton lessons, which is super cool. And that's actually inspired me to spend more time with it. I just got done doing basically a 45-minute online lesson on Ableton today, because I need to teach a little bit of Ableton tomorrow. And what do they say? You got to stay one step ahead of the kids. So actually, the stuff I got to today, I don't think I'll even give it to the kids yet, because it's a little bit beyond. I'm maybe actually maybe 2 steps ahead of the kids, so that's good. Summer, I get a chance to get a little bit ahead, right? But anyway, I'd love to hear what you have to say. I'm going to try to do some more blogging on my blog, ericsonger.blogspot.com, and if it's easier for you to respond to that, that's cool. I'll try to get something up on this topic soon, and I'm going to, again, try to do one of these podcasts every week, and talk about different issues in music education. Like I said, I have a ton of topics. Some of them might be based on a couple books I'm reading. I'm reading a great book right now that's sitting right here. This book called When by Daniel Pink. Daniel Pink is a wonderful author, by the way. And it's not a how-to book. It's a when-to book. and I'm barely into it here. I'm about like 2 chapters in, but some really cool things. So I might do some talks on books. I'll definitely get into cliques and groups and popularity because that's a big passion of mine. I will definitely get into more topics related to popular music education, as well as relationships with kids and the importance of that, and talking about things like professional development, talking about things about parent involvement in kids' lives and community involvement, and schools working with communities. Again, some things will be very music-based, some things won't. So I hope you join me again for a future podcast. Hope you didn't think I was rambling too much, and I hope you can take something away from this. So thanks so much for joining me on Second Floor Therapy.